So one, thank you so much for taking the time and coming today. And you're going to have to suffer through maybe 3 or 4 slides the most. I hate slides, but they wanted me to have a couple up there. I like showing product more. Plus, I'm not very good at presenting. It's not my forte. I just like building beautiful stuff. And then having you take a look at it and tell me whether it's beautiful or not. So, right. It's been a pleasure working with Phil and the team here. I mean, they're just so forward-thinking in terms of, how AI can push the envelope. And he's always challenging me, even at dinner last night, but what if 2 reps both had Aviso? It's an interesting question. Then what happens? And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. I'd like that to be the case where both reps have Aviso, because that would mean, we're pretty prevalent across the board, not just, in North America, but also in Europe. But it was an interesting question because, I always think of what we do. Actually, why don't I show you a video first, and then I'll jump into my presentation.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, wait, let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, I don't have that information on hand.
Read the copy. The copy's good, just read it.
Wait a minute. Wait, that's your pitch? You consider that a sales call?
A, B, C. Always be closing.
What if you never made another sales call alone?
We call it agentic AI.
We can be symbiotic with AI. It's at least an order of magnitude better than anything else.
Now let's do this!
Let's do this.
Qualified 47 leads this week. Booked 12 enterprise meetings with your AEs.
Got 3 prospects engaged today. 1 demo scheduled for Thursday. TechStart's usage dropped 40%. And renewals in 60 days, I flagged it and built a retention plan.
On budget objection? Try reframing around cost of inaction and slow down a bit.
Sure. I'll help with this technical question. We support 10K per second, and we're SOC2 certified.
Your QBR is ready. Pipeline's solid, but stage 3 conversions are down 8%. Forecasting $2.3 million this month.
Every question answered. Every lead qualified. Every deal accelerated. Your agentic AI edge.
We have all the time in the world.
Now get out there and do it.
It's not just an AI agent. It's your revenue partner. Your GTM teams need an unfair advantage to win.
Cool. There you go. So anyway, going back to the conversation last night, and by the way, the last line was if you guys didn't recognize it, I'm aging myself, I'm 51. So I used to be the youngest guy in the room, and now I find I'm probably one of the oldest, which is kind of nice for a change. It's more authenticity as you were talking about, intellectual or otherwise. But I think it's an interesting concept, right? Because at the end of the day, we keep talking about the fact that most folks are buyer aware, and I think you guys know that very well. I mean, people do their homework. It's very different from when I started. When I was at McKinsey and then started selling, and 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 2004, I did 1,400% of my number coming out of McKinsey, and people were wondering how the hell did you manage to do that? And I always say it was basically about information arbitrage. And the reason I say that is if you look across time, right, whether it was the Egyptians, or the Hittites, or if you want to look at World War I, World War II. Folks who had knowledge and who had information, were the civilizations that survived and thrived and moved forward. And then, of course, you suddenly had the dot-com era, if you guys remember that. And it was interesting because all of a sudden, information was more freely available. And the societal dynamics changed because it was freely available across the web. You don't have to really, you couldn't really use it as, to define people or define factors, define social dynamics, right? And then with AI, what we're seeing is the edge that you had, right? So, for example, one of the reasons I think I did well at that point in time was because I wasn't that smart, but I just worked harder than everyone else. And what I mean by that is I looked at the 10K, I looked at the 14A, I figured out what really mattered to my customers, and then based my interactions on that. And I play a lousy game of golf. I'm a rugby player, so I suck at golf. So I was not big on golfing. I wasn't big on going out to dinners and all the fancy stuff. I focused more on what I believe drive value for my customers. And that paid in spades for me because, I was able to beat, SAP, and I was at Oracle at that time. I beat SAP, and I beat the rest of the crew. And that's helped me in, as I built Aviso, right? Because when I look at what Aviso does is, it takes that mindset and it takes the information arbitrage, and takes the what I would call the intelligence advantage, and essentially makes everyone in the room, I wouldn't say equally intelligent, but definitely able to do the same because you have the same level of information. And I think what's really going to differentiate folks as they go forward is the ability to innovate faster, take advantage of AI in terms of intelligence, and be able to build applications and innovate with them and use it in a fashion that's going to turn your salespeople into, I like to say the next, Isaac Newton, because he's my favorite, of course. But essentially, I think that's where Aviso does, is because we provide you the tool sets to really have that unfair advantage because you're supremely well informed. You have intellectual authenticity because you know more about your customer, you know more about your product, and you're not there selling, vaporware or mirrors, as Phil was talking about, but you're able to figure out what's really important for the customer and really deliver on customer centricity and what's really going to move the needle for them. And without that, I think in today's environment, you're just another, you're just another guy out there pitching a product that probably no one wants or no one really cares about, right? So what are we doing at Aviso, and how are we helping deliver on that promise, right? Because people talk about AGI so freely. I think AGI is a ways away. I think there's going to be a fundamental shift in algorithmic research, and we're going to have to probably come up with something that's vastly different, which can give you both a sense of self as well as the ability to really transform the way we interact with people, et cetera, et cetera. But what I do think we can do in the interim is leverage AI for what it is, whether it's large quantitative models, whether we're talking about LLMs or the time series DB, to kind of deliver on the promise of what AI can do. And what I mean by that is, when you look at the current tech stack today, right, it's really a Frankenstack. You got multiple solutions, multiple CRMs. It's a mess, right? And I was talking earlier about where information was the edge, intelligence, and now the application of intelligence, which I already covered. But when you look at the world we have today, right, we really believe that at the end of the day, applications as we know it are not going to exist in the next 3 to 5 years. The phones you have are edge devices that will provide video, audio, but also with the way chips are going, both from a TPSC perspective as well as a GPU perspective. You probably heard that NVIDIA got a haircut recently because of application-specific chips. What we believe is that the computing power on the phone is going to be so great that you won't have to go to a central center to kind of get the API calls in, right? So what that does is it's incredible because AI is going to mediate the interface and give you the ability to have your own personal agent that transcends both your personal life as well as your work life. And you won't need to know how the sausage is being made per se, or which apps are being used, but really you'll be able to get the information you want from your edge device, or your edge device could go to the extent of predicting what you really need and then getting ahead of it. And it doesn't have to be AGI for it to do that. It could use tools like Amplitude, screen share, et cetera, et cetera. So what that means for us is it's really exciting for us, because what we're then able to do is, essentially drive value, across the enterprise. And let me see here. And we're going to show you a video today about how we do that. The video today is going to be about a product we've recently released, Halo, about 2 or 3 months ago. And what Halo does is it delivers on the vision of not only being able to be there for you when you need it most, but also the ability to predict what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and then actually do it for you. And people find that hard to believe because they're like, well, Trevor, that's AGI. And I say, no, that's not really AGI. That's really hacking AGI. And this is real. This is today. So it's not about so much about what we can do to deliver value in the next 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. It's about what are you doing today to enable your sales teams to be more productive, to give them that extra edge and the information they need to, essentially drive more revenue for your enterprise, and essentially beat everyone else, right? At the end of the day, that's what we do. So let me play.
Every day, while you're trying to catch up, deals slip away. What if you have an unfair advantage? Halo tells you everything before you need it. gives you a competitive edge in every conversation.
I need to understand your pricing model versus your competitors.
Me gustaría entender mejor su
It speaks every language your business demands.
comparado con otras soluciones disponibles.
When you're done, it keeps working.
Hey Halo, let's review roll-ups.
Just ask Halo anything and get more than 98% accurate forecasting.
Halo, go ahead and approve all now.
Halo handles the updates. You handle the close. Halo knows everyone you need to know. Halo AI Companion. Your unfair advantage.
What questions do you guys have before we jump into the demo? And then any questions? Anything you can answer? We got a pretty silent group here. Normally I get 10 questions about how this is impossible to do, or does this really work, or is it GA, is it LA, or... Yeah, go ahead.
Do you keep a human in the loop?
You always keep a human in the loop, right? Because we're big believers in AI augments what the human does. It doesn't in any way, form, or fashion replace it. So we have human in the loop both in terms of our responses and how we fine-tune our responses, and we also have human in the loop in terms of how we improve the product experience and the customer experience, and it comes automatically based on the responses you give and then the prompts you provide. So.
Who's the target audience for this technology? Because I'm just thinking back to the intellectual authenticity piece, and this can help you be very efficient and productive. But if you haven't got a level of experience to layer over the top to be able to create that intellectual authenticity, which is the bit that's missing in terms of the relationship with the customer, then where is this aimed? Is this aimed really at experienced salespeople that can use it as a tool because they've got that layer over the top? But if you gave this to someone with no sales experience, how would they really use it?
So no sales experience is a tough one. What I will say this is, the vision for us for this is rather simple. Would you rather have your rep, simple question, would you rather have your rep have Halo or not have Halo? And would you rather trust your rep to go and look at the 10K, the 14A for compensation, the latest financial releases, do research on the customer, do a desk analysis of the person he's going to talk to, and do all that over 10, 20, 30 prospects and do it in real time, and do that on a regular basis. And if you can have that happen for your entire population, then you've achieved nirvana, right? So our goal is basically to do 80% of the work that a rep would otherwise not do, and it will be really difficult to enforce. And then the 20% is where the individual authenticity comes in, et cetera. So you're right, probably someone who's never been in sales, this is a great tool for him for you to basically take this, put in best practices and help him understand how to be a better version of himself. But what we found really powerful with a number of our customers is they use this for folks who actually don't understand the product SKUs and have not really had the tenure at that customer like a Cisco or someone else. So what this does help you is on day one or week 2 of your job, you can be incredibly productive because you could have a sales call. You don't need an SE on it. You don't need, the traditional thing about, hey, I'm going to get back to you, or I'm going to put this in a whiteboard, which is extremely exasperating. If you're talking about intellectual authenticity, I want to work with a salesperson who understands my business, who understands his products, can tell me where those products have been used, can give me ROI and business cases off that. And if you can't bring that to the table, then why have I done all this research on your company and I'm buyer aware, and then you come on the call and you just want to talk about functions and features and you know very little because you want to be in your week 1 or week 2, So it's those kinds of challenges that we're seeing customers address with Halo is I like to say it makes you a better version of who you are and brings out your inner Newton or your inner Einstein or whatever, right? So I hope that helps. But essentially what we're seeing is it addresses both folks who are, who just joined the company, but also senior people in the company who just it didn't have the wherewithal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how many people in this room, how successful are your global account programs, your enablement programs in getting 70, 60, 80% of your people doing account plans, doing pre-meeting briefs, which are so amazing to do, or doing research? They really go through the 10K, pour through it. They pour through the latest financial releases. Your rep on NVIDIA knows they got a haircut. Your rep on NVIDIA knows that Gemini just came out with a new chip that's affecting NVIDIA. And then NVIDIA, the moat we thought it had didn't have. Or your rep's looking at Meta, for example. They're selling to Meta, and then they're realizing that, oh, wait, they just spent $2 billion hiring some of the finest minds, but then of that $2 billion they spent, about 30% of those folks have returned home. Who goes to that level of research on your teams? If they do, that's amazing, because then those are the most successful salespeople. But what we're trying to do is take the middle majority and bring it to the same level. Like, coming out of McKinsey, I mean, McKinsey does a really good job, and I can say this because I'm an alumni, of telling you how they're going to spend $50, $100, $200 million of your money at about $1,000 an hour. I used to build 500, and I was fresh out of my PhD program for Columbia. How they're going to tell you to essentially change your brand. You end up, shall we say, not as successful as you want, and then they'll charge you another couple of $100 million to tell you how to get out of bankruptcy and reinvent yourself, right? And I'm being facetious here, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, where we're going with this is, how do I get to the stage where I can take my middle majority and make them as good as that 5, 10, 15%, or 20% of folks who constantly deliver over and above. And you can either settle for the fact that most companies believe that only about 60% of their people actually make quota, or you can aspire to, why should only those 60% make quota? Why can't I have 80 or 90% of my people blow it out of the water, right? That's the way I look at it. I mean, at Aviso, I can tell you right now, my average productivity is 3.8 million per AE. The industry average at Salesforce is for enterprise groups are 1.2 million. At Oracle, it's 900,000. At SAP, it's 1.3 to 1.4 because you go to larger deals. We're 3.8. At Salesforce, my team of 64, I had a small team, 64, we did more revenue than all of Europe. And Miguel Milano, who's now the CRO of Salesforce and a really good friend and a peer of mine, will tell you that. And Miguel had 300 people, 350 people. And I'm dating myself. This was when Salesforce was doing about $5 billion a year. And my 64 people did more revenue than his 300. Were they magical? I mean, no. It's just we had a different perspective on how we approached accounts. And that enabled us to be more productive. And every one of my guys made his number. And every one of my guys went to club, all 64. And then HR called me up because they never had anyone, they'd never in the history of Salesforce had a team that had 20 people who made more than $1 million in commissions. So they were wondering whether I'm a quant and had a reputation of being a quant, whether I somehow changed the comp plans so that 20 people could make over $1 million. I'm proud of the fact that my guys did that well, but the only way they did that well was because I forced them to go through a certain level of rigor that I don't think in this generation, this was about 10, 15 years ago, this generation, if I did that to my current team at Aviso, they'd flee for the hills. We're dealing with a different generation today, and the only way you can get them to that level is through information, enable them to have tools that are going to get them as educated, and essentially give them the ability to perform at that level, right?